You're looking good, and it feels good to be with you. I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, and this is News with the Eyes of Faith, where I talk about news from the point of view of Christ and the doctrine of Christ. So we'd like to welcome a new follower, Alexia Barben. Welcome. Oh my goodness, I got the blinds. Hold on a second. I apologize for that technical difficulty. Let's get back to the news. So, welcome, Alexia Barben. So, in the news, Biden is still president. Are you going to vote for more of the same? I guess that's one way to frame the upcoming election. Sorry, I got the working with the lighting there. It's a little bit better now. I guess that's what the campaign is about, more of the same. And in one sense, more of the same is either candidate. But, which has the better team? Harris's team or Trump's team? J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, RFK Jr., Elon Musk. That's an impressive team, an impressive pirate ship we're working with. So there you go. Big item in the news was a Harris-Baier interview. And of course, these things are always an incidence of apophenia. You saw what you wanted to see, one screen, two films. Harris was using some interesting tactics. What you do as an interview like that is you're going into enemy territory, so you have certain tactics you can use to ensure that you win. So this is a peek into the green room. This is what goes on behind the scenes with these interviews, because it's as Rush Limbaugh used to say, news isn't what happens, it's a commodity that gets manufactured. So she showed up late. She dodged questions. When somebody asks you a question, what you do is you do sort of a quick answer, then you just change the subject and talk about what you want to talk about, and then you leave early. In the future, pay attention, see if that's what's going on 60 Minutes or any other interview. Now, when you do a sort of a loose format like talk radio, you don't have those constraints. You do have hard breaks, but you don't have those constraints. Or a podcast like Joe Rogan, those tactics don't work. But with what Brett Baier was doing, Harris had these tactics that work there. It wasn't really an honest conversation, especially the point that got me is the part where Harris was talking. Brett Baier showed the clip about the woman whose daughter was killed by an illegal alien, and she expressed sympathy and then changed the subject. Play that clip again and do that. It just says, okay, we have to talk about Donald Trump. That was what she did was no different than when Hillary Clinton said about her Benghazi bungle. What difference at this point does it make? That's just what Harris's answer was. I don't find that acceptable. That's someone not owning up to responsibility. I hope you don't find that acceptable and you vote your conscience. So, Confusocracy. That's a theme I use here, Confusocracy. On the Drudge report for a couple of days now, they've been showing this picture of Kamala Harris dressed formally as she's getting sworn in as vice president. And that's a persuasion thing. You look at that and it isn't real, but it feels like she's already been sworn in as president. I was listening to the news and they were getting quotes from Harris, not from Biden. And it's another thing, it's trying to get you to feel like she's already president. And it's a demoralization tactic, Confusocracy. Because we all know what happened. You all saw it with the debate with Trump. Someone took Biden. I'm curious who did this. Someone took Biden off his meds. He went to the debate off his meds. Now he's back on his meds again. Apophenia, am I seeing something is this confirmation bias? And if you accuse me of that, how do you explain your exemption from confirmation bias? Because you're assuming a privileged status, saying, okay, I can detect confirmation, but you can't. Is that a double standard? More tactics, more Confusocracy. Well, last year, around June 1st, the first presidency sent out a letter and said, we urge you to spend the time needed to become informed about the issues and candidates you'll be considering. Some principles compatible with the gospel may be found in various political parties, and members should seek candidates who best embody those principles. Members should also study candidates carefully and vote for those who have demonstrated integrity, compassion, and service to others, regardless of party affiliation. Merely voting a straight ticket or voting based on, quote, tradition without careful study of the candidates and their positions on important issues is a threat to democracy and inconsistent with revealed standards. Information on candidates is available through the internet, debates, and other sources. So I voted, and this is my copy of the. This is a copy of the American Legion Constitution. I read this every year on July 4th. Constitution and Declaration of Independence. Every year on July 4th, and there's a Utah I voted one for the most one. I'm kind of running out because the back has part of the Constitution on it. But yeah, get one of these, another version, every year July 4th to refresh yourself on what we're supposed to be doing here. And so following that counsel, I went into this election saying, okay, I'm going to vote for at least one person out of my party. I ended up voting for one Libertarian, one Constitution Party, and one United Way Party. That's what I did. And I took a picture of the ballot for my personal records. In some states, it's illegal to post your ballot online. Not sure why. We have that First Amendment thing. That Constitution thing again. Like I said, it kind of loses the impact if you see it, but it's the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and really flip to the Constitution. You really like Constitution, the First Amendment? Okay, so I didn't vote for a Democrat. Now, I have voted for one Democrat once. That was Dianne Feinstein. I did think she was capable, and from California, it's a mixed bag. I was going to vote for someone who doesn't 100% gospel ideals, but I thought she was good. I thought she stayed in there too long. When you're having to drag corpses out of the Supreme Court and the Senate chambers, there's a problem going on. I will vote for Democrat, 1, when they stop killing babies, 2, when they stop killing old people, 3, they come clean about Biden's health issue and Hillary Clinton's health issue, and then follow the science on puberty blockers. So that's what I did. You're going to do this differently, depending upon your circumstances. You may be coming from a state where you can trust people from other parties, and certainly I trusted these 3 people from 3 different parties to help here in Utah, and that's how I followed the first presidency. Well, there is a talked about Deseret News. Has released that the first presidency has authorized changes in garments for women, and also for men, in hot and humid climates, and it was first broke with the Salt Lake Trib a day early, and then Jana Reese. And Jana Reese serves a purpose. I mean, I think sometimes she can be vicious to her enemies, but she does serve a purpose. So it's just kind of sleeveless ones, like it's the fashion, and they also have, it looks like a skirt, and it's for people in hotter climates. And if you serve your mission in a country that was warm or didn't have air conditioning, you know what you're talking about. It reminds me of a mission companion I had, and he said he wanted to get a pair of midget garments so he could wear them while playing basketball, which kind of misses the point of, there's a little bit, still getting these devil horns, evil. There you go. I'm kind of stuck. I can't do one thing or the other. So, if you buy copies of my book, I can buy a better lighting system to make these podcasts look a little bit better. So, fashion, Book of Mormon, there's a correlation between clothing and pride, but you also have practical considerations. I'm always an advocate of men being able to wear short sleeve shirts in the temple. That's sort of a recreational thing I advocate on this podcast, but I don't pressure anyone. I'm not sure why you have to wear long sleeves and what's wrong with short sleeves. Well, there you go. Change everything except that. I do have a question, too, is how long can you maintain a local exception? So how soon you start making this universal to other women? Because, there's going to be a lot of women shrieking about not being able to mirror the fashions of the world. Plus, I thought it's interesting in the context of the garment push in General Conference and Elder Holland's talk. This also presents a problem with someone like me where I'm just a member pointing a tablet at my face, talking about things, and how do you defend church policies that keep on changing? We used to talk about, these 3 inches of clothing, and we're going to defend that in the same way we defend that. It's wrong to take 1 teaspoon of coffee. That does make a difference, but it does present some kind of issues about this. It just comes down to supporting the first presidency. But the bigger question is why do you want or need to dress this way? That where it's conflict with the temple garment. It's the same thing with tattoos. What's this feverish impulse that you need to get a tattoo? Why do you need to dress this way? Why is it such a big idea to you? Well, conference, continuing with the top news with the eyes of faith, President Nelson said, I urge you to devote time each week for the rest of your life to increase your understanding of the atonement of Jesus Christ. Now, this is kind of interesting. He gave that's a sentence. The boundary conditions is once a week, increase your for the rest of your life understanding of the atonement. Now, you notice he didn't send out a schedule, and I bet there's local leaders who just are itching to robotically program their ward members, but that's not the right way to do things. Back in April of 2017, President Monson told people to study the Book of Mormon. And it's interesting, later that year, in the October 2017, that's where he had some general authorities reported on it. Henry B. Eyring did. President Nelson, that's where he gave his talk about Book of Mormon, what would your life be like without it, and the things that the Book of Mormon affirms and refutes. And then a year after President Monson's talk, with him having passed, David A. Bednar talked a little bit about that. So President Monson just gave sort of this general statement to the brethren, did it a certain way, and did it follow us up without having to get a robotic message, because you're going to do it differently. In fact, with President Nelson's invitation, you're going to change how you do it over your life, because this is a lifelong project. And so when you're younger, you're going to do it differently than when you're older, single, married with children, as grandparents, retired, on a mission, off a mission, with different callings you have. It's going to change, and getting this robotic programming isn't the best way to work. Programs, talking about church having a program, well, program is what you do to a robot. I'd like to talk this other thing about setting aside differences. This was an expression used, sort of used in conference. They used the expression, didn't focus on differences. And in the context, this is COVID-19 with an ecumenical type council. And in a case of an emergency, you might do something like that. It's more of putting your shoulder to the wheel than than pounding the pulpit type situation. But later on in conference, they talked about how other churches wouldn't accept our baptism because of our views on the Godhead. And setting aside your differences to build community. One of the differences our church has is temple marriage. So would you like to set aside your temple marriage, being sealed to your spouse and having children born in the covenant, in order to get people to like you, being sealed to your parents and ancestors? Do that so people can like you? Or what about the brethren who hold the priesthood? Would you like to set aside the difference of you holding the priesthood, the ability to bless your eternal companion, bless your children born in the covenant because they're sick, and to do that in the name of the Lord? Is that something you want to set aside? Would you like to set aside your patriarchal blessing? That's another difference. What about the gift of the Holy Ghost? The greatest gift you can have in mortality, as President Wilford Woodruff said, is the gift of the Holy Ghost. Set aside the guidance you received. Set aside your covenants, your temple covenants. Set aside the endowment. Set aside living prophets. Would you be willing to set aside the Book of Mormon? Set aside that difference. Joseph Smith said, take away the Book of Mormon and the Revelations, and where's our religion? We have none. That's the Joseph Smith Manual, chapter 16. Take away the Book of Mormon, you just flush the entire restoration down the toilet and slam down the lid. And if you remember, the church is under condemnation for having neglected the Book of Mormon. There's a condemnation, a scourge, and a judgment, because we're still not using the Book of Mormon like we should. When you give a talk in sacrament meeting, are you quoting C.S. Lewis and Brené Brown? Or is it just 100% from the scriptures and living prophets? Treating these things lightly, treating the correct name of the church lightly. Well, intellectual ammunition section. When you're debating someone, don't tell them. Just ask them a question. Do it Socratically. Said, okay, what top 3 policies of Harris do you like? You know, her main campaign is abortion. I saw the clip where she's talking about that, and someone said, praise Jesus, and Harris responded, you're at the wrong rally. My response is, amen. Okay, you see where things are going. Neil A. Maxwell said if fetuses could have votes, you'd see a bunch of chameleon candidates change their positions. That's intellectual ammunition. Now, the next section is can you persuade someone? One of the greatest skills you can add to your skill set tool chest is the ability to persuade, to study it, how you phrase things. Now, the barrier is that people are of two minds. We have two different operating systems out there, the rational and the emotional. And in fact, I put this link to a Smithsonian Magazine article. Now, this is a popular article. This isn't scientific, but this is a popular article, study based on that. It says that a study predicts political beliefs with an 83% accuracy. That's 83%. That's pretty good. And it's with MRIs, and people are liberal and conservative, have different sections of their brain active when they make decisions. So this creates a problem. Okay, is your political beliefs hardwired? Now here's another thing. Are your religious beliefs hardwired? People base things on emotion versus logic. Are they valid because you feel that they're valid? Or are they valid because they're true? And then when you say, when you start saying it, well, this is our truth. Well, all truth is independent. It's not dependent upon a group's point of view. That's your value. That's not your truth. And that's the Confusocracy operating again. You kind of hear this when people talk about, talk about the joy you have when you show up to church. So you dress dapper, sit on a hard pew, and you're feeling joy. And is that why you go to church? And someone responds, well, you feel joy when you go to church. I feel joy when I'm getting drunk or taking meth. Yeah, the church is a euphoric, the emotional appeal. Other thing, too, is if you base decisions on emotion, think about this. Is Trump scary? Does Trump frighten you? Well, I'd say he certainly has a dread, D-R-E-D, and that's like the dread sovereign or the dread pirate Roberts. That as far as a type of fear that you can respect, he's someone you don't want to horse around with. And some people actually like his confidence, his brashness, and I'll say rudeness and crudeness. But then again, you voted for Bill Clinton or you support the Clintons, and Bill Clinton did the same thing. He was just a little bit more suave and kept it behind closed doors. Is Harris your mommy to make the scary things go away? Tuck you in at bedtime, bake you cookies, and read you bedtime stories. You remember the hobbits were sheltered. As it says in The Lord of the Rings, the Shire, the hobbits forgot that they were sheltered. And that just exposed them to dangers. This is a dangerous world. And this perpetual childhood, wanting to go home and hide under the covers instead of facing the facts of reality. You're not responding as an adult. Another problem with persuading people is the poisoned minds. They'll look and say there's two impeachments, there's a Mueller report, there's a Durham report, the New York indictment. Now, see, with the New York indictment, that's interesting because they finally could attach this label convicted felon or indicted felon or a convicted felon to them, which is how they process things. They don't process things in terms of identity, but in terms of label. Identity is describing what's already out there. Label is your personal views that you impose upon people. And just some people just need to attach Post-it notes to people's foreheads. Label, felon, scary, boom, on your forehead. And that's how they operate. Like I said, it's a different operating system. And in fact, this legal system really hasn't been effective on taking down Trump. So that's why they're moving to extra legal or sub-legal things like assassinations. Yeah, the problem isn't Trump. It's not Harris. It's a bigger issue. It's which is what you're reading about in the Book of Mormon and the Book of Helaman, which David A. Bednar talked about. Well, I've talked a lot. We're almost at 20 minutes, and this is I try and keep these things short. I try and get to the point. But this is a little bit sobering one. Your vote, it's in your hands. You can choose the destiny of the country. You go into the sunlit lands, or you can vote us into oblivion. But feeling good about yourself as the abortion death count skyrockets. And those are my views. And that is News with the Eyes of Faith, 1930